Hey guys, Grumpy here with a ship showcase for the Humble Vigilance. So the Vigilance has always been one of my favorite ships. It punches way above its weight class. And with the release of the new missiles, I think it's got a massive buff to what was already a good ship. So in this showcase, we're going to demonstrate the features of the Vigilance and then go ahead and do a skirmish. So the Vigilance is a frigate. You can find it in Persian markets pretty reliably. They have a lot of things going for them. So first of all, they have a pretty healthy ordnance point pool of 45. It has really good capacity. It has a really good shield flux per damage of 0.8, which you can augment further with things like hardened shields or flux modulation. So you can make this a really tanky ship. And then finally, it has the ship system fast missile racks. So you expend a bit of flux, and for that you get to reload your missiles instantly, which is why this is such a good ship with the new missiles. So I have three variations of the Vigilance. This one is the Gazer. So it uses the Gazer SRM pod, which was a new addition to the game. It launches a suite of missiles that do damage similar to how the gravitation beam works. Missile lasts a pretty long time. So you can get multiple volleys out while they're still hitting the same ship. And then I have a heavy mauler to supplement that because this is kinetic, wanted high explosive. As far as hull mods go, expanded missile racks, of course, so we can double the total number of missiles. Then we have ECCM package. This is, I would strongly recommend ECCM package. It's going to buff the strength of your missiles. And then finally, ECM package. I definitely recommend you sneak ECM rating wherever you can. And on frigates, it's perfect because usually you have a excess of ordnance points anyway. And across your entire fleet, you're getting, depending how many frigates you bring to the fight, anywhere from 5 to 10% ECM rating. Then I have the Gorgon variant. So same kind of ship design. The only difference is we use the Gorgon SRM pod, which deals damage similar to a typical beam weapon or typical energy weapon. It just fires a beam that does more damage than the Gazer does. It's unspecified, it's energy, so it doesn't gain any bonuses, also has no penalties. And then it uses a hypervelocity driver to deal kinetic damage. And then finally, you have the Dragonfire DM torpedo. I love this missile. I don't know what Alex was thinking when he designed it, but it is a guided Reaper, basically. It fires through your ships, so you can spam out a bunch of these, which we will demonstrate a little later on. And they all lock onto the target, and then they unload a massive payload that does a ton of damage. This gets modified by things like Wolfpack Tactics, target analysis. All of those buffs apply to your missiles. It's insane. It's a Reaper that cannot miss. And then it also uses the hypervelocity driver to deal kinetic damage. So here's the commander. Some of the things that I talked about just now: target analysis, missile specialization. If you're using the Dragonfire specifically, you kind of want to elite this. Wolfpack Tactics, mandatory, absolutely mandatory. That 20% does apply to your missiles, and you are a frigate, so you get that 20% against your target. Okay, so here's the fleet that I'm going to demonstrate with. It is 10 Vigilances, and we're going to go up against a pretty tough fleet. Notice I don't have any officers in these ships, but that is fine. All I have to do is go into the command section, check my doctrine and blueprints, and make sure that my aggression is at least set to aggressive. I'm going to go ahead and put it on reckless, just so that we make sure we get those missiles out. But what aggression does is for your non-piloted ships, it tells them how aggressive you want them to be. So you can go all the way down to cautious, which I don't really recommend. But you have steady, aggressive and reckless, and then pure aggressive, pure reckless. So let's go ahead and run a simulation. We'll deploy all of us, and then let's bring in some ships. So let's bring in something like this. So it's a capital ship, 2 destroyers, and then 4 destroyers. So that's 40 plus another 40, so 80 deployment point worth of ships versus about 50 here. So let's go ahead and bring those in. I'm just gonna hit full assault, and I am going to set myself to autopilot. So there is no guidance here. I'm just letting the ships go, and as the battle goes on, I'll go ahead and switch from ship to ship just so that we can see kind of what's going on. So on Reddit, what inspired me to design this fleet, and this is just a small demonstration of what's possible. Obviously, you can min-max it further with officers. You can also add more vigilances, make it your own. But what's going on here is each one of your vigilances is able to spam out these Dragonfire missiles very reliably, and they're what's doing the bulk of your damage. You have a lot of targets, so it's really hard for something like a capital ship to pin your ships down. And then even if you lose 1 or 2, because you have so many redundant ships, it's very easy for them to offload that damage and spread it around. So we make extreme short work of that fleet. This capital ship is not going to last long. The reason why this fleet works so well is because these missiles do so much damage. They can very quickly eliminate whatever ship they're facing. So if you have 2 of these Dragonfire Vigilances next to each other against a destroyer, between the 2 of them spamming out those missiles, it's not going to last that long. And then even here, in this case where, like, say a Vigilance runs out of missiles, it still has those heavy mortars and those heavy maulers, or hypervelocity drivers, and the heavy maulers to do that consistent damage over time, which also is buffed by things like Wolfpack tactics, target analysis, etc., etc. So made short work of that fleet, and the Onslaught is no slouch. It is almost tailor-made to fight off frigates. So, able to quickly rip apart that fleet and dispatch the capital ship with enough firepower left at the end. So that was without officers. Like I mentioned, you definitely want to include officers in your fleet. It's just going to be nothing but positives. You can get that target analysis, you can get that missile specialization, and deal even more damage. The most ideal officer has, and this is hard to do, you have to fish for it, but has target analysis, missile specialization, and then also systems expertise. Systems expertise is going to give you another charge to your reload, so you can get missiles out even quicker. So hard to find, very difficult, but if you do, that is your unicorn. That is the officer that you want to put in charge of your ship. So the last thing I'll leave you with is the vigilance ratio. So I'm using 2 Gazers, 2 Gorgons, and then 6 Dragonfires. Times to increase the amount of Gazers you have is if you're going against a fleet with a lot of really strong shields. So those are like your endgame fleets, not going to spoil anything. Times to increase your Gorgons is if the enemy fleet has a lot of small ships. So Gorgons do really well against other frigates, other destroyers. They can work against cruisers, but they can kind of start to fall off. The reason why you want more Gorgons is because you want to save your Dragonfires for the bigger ships at the end of the fight. And then also, you don't want your Vigilances surrounded, and your Gorgons are going to have a faster time to kill than your Dragonfires are going to. So that's the fleet, that's the guidance. Try it out, give it a try. Even if you don't want to dedicate your entire fleet to something like this nonsense, I would definitely recommend picking up Wolfpack Tactics, as well as a couple of Dragonfire Vigilances just for additional support. If you don't want to make that the entire part of your fleet, then you can obviously transition over to something like a Griffin, if I have one. Something like a Griffin, built the exact same way, except you would use the you could use something like the large Dragonfire torpedo. I forget exactly what it's called, but it has a large variant. And then on the sides here, you can dedicate those to either Gorgons to fight off smaller ships, or, you know, Sabopods, which are the old reliable. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that ship showcase. Other than that, Grumpy out.